Involving Dothan police could have far-reaching effects. News 4's Ken Curtis live in our newsroom on the ruling and its background. Ken, what can you tell us tonight?
Hi, Kinsley. On a hot day in June of 2020, two men strolled into the Department of Human Resources office in Dothan armed with video cameras. Employees there told them to leave, but the men refused, so a DHR employee called police. When officers Jay Dodson and D. Bridges arrived, they handcuffed those men for about a half hour, but ultimately released them without charges. George Metz, who was one of the men, they're called First Amendment auditors, filed a lawsuit naming Dodson and Bridges in their official capacity. In a ruling, a federal court judge refused to give those officers what's called qualified immunity, which would mean they could be held personally liable. Now, the city of Dothan and the officers appealed, and this afternoon, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta ruled that the judge was wrong in his decision. But this case goes far beyond those two officers. The appeals court ruling also said Dodson and Bridges were within their rights to ask the First Amendment auditors for identification. That ruling could be huge because generally officers can't demand ID unless they believe a crime has occurred or will occur. Dothan Police Chief Will Biddy hailed the ruling. He told me that this has been an issue and the case is a clear victory. Talking about the issue being the First Amendment auditors, and he called this a clear victory for law enforcement and the rule of law. Biddy said Dothan police work hard to protect constitutional rights. Now, the issue here isn't whether Metz and his associate could record at DHR. They probably could because it is a public lobby, but instead the issue is how did the officers act appropriately and within their rights to cuff those auditors and to demand their identification, Kinsley.
Very interesting stuff there.
It is.
Ken Curtis, thank you for that.
Hey everyone, it's Andrew. Welcome to another video. This one is a shocker. Woke up this morning to this decision or news of this decision, which comes out of the Court of Appeals in Atlanta. You can see the date up there is 12/12/2024, which is 2 days ago at the time of this recording. Anyway, basically, this is involving a frauditor out of Alabama, and he basically went up on a public building and you know, without getting into the details of this opinion, which you can read here, and it's available online. But essentially, were told to leave and they wouldn't leave. Then they were asked to give their ID and they wouldn't give their ID, and then they were handcuffed for about 30 minutes. Then they were released without any problems, and of course, in true frauditor fashion, they sued, and the original judge, the first one, gave them all kinds of deference, took away the qualified immunity of the officers, wouldn't throw the case out of court, and basically decided in favor of these frauditors. Of course, the police appealed. It got up to the appeals court in Atlanta, which just issued this ruling 2 days ago. And they basically said it was wrong to strip the officers of their qualified immunity. And, you know, basically said everything else was wrong. And I'll conclude this with this opinion of the court, basically the summary at the very end. It's only 13-page opinion, so it's very easy to read, and you know, without too much difficulty. I recorded this video of this ruling scrolling by earlier this morning, so I'm actually not controlling the scrolling of this ruling right now. It's going to stop here because I would assume that I would read the entire paragraph, but I hate it when people do that on videos. You can read it on your own. I'll just summarize and kind of tell you what happened. But it should end here momentarily, and I guess I wanted to get into the issues of qualified immunity and what constitutes an unconstitutional arrest and whatnot. And the court goes through all of that in the reasoning of their opinion. And but these frauditors thought they had a great case going since it made it to the appellate division. I'm sure they were thinking they would be treated much better at the appellate division, which I think is the case, than being treated at the state level. But actually, they had the carpet pulled out from under them, and they're not going to get any kind of settlement anytime soon. I think the next appeal is to the U.S. Supreme Court. So good luck with that. But the thing is, this is an amazing precedent potential case that impacts all cases where people are asked for their ID. And here's the end, I think. Is this the end? Let's just say, in this case, the officers are entitled to qualified immunity. No, this isn't the very end. It's coming, though, I promise. But it's going to be hard to deny a cop who asks you for your ID. Here it is. In short, Metz has not established a violation of his constitutional rights, let alone a clearly established right. He does not cite binding case law, which clearly establishes that either officer's conduct was unlawful, nor do the broader Fourth Amendment principles on which he relies prescribe the officer's conduct. Finally, he has not shown that the officer's conduct was so obviously, oh geez, I missed that. I guess I read too slowly. But he basically gets spanked by the court in that one paragraph, which is at the very end of this 13-page opinion. And it's a total victory for the police and for the rule of law, as far as I'm concerned, and has multiple implications in the future about asking for ID. And I think it's going to give more strength to law enforcement in identifying these suspicious people that they encounter on a daily basis, whether they're First Amendment frauditors, whether they're burglars, whether they're just average people walking around. You know, cops need to have the right to investigate suspicious people, and that means asking for their ID. Now, there can be reasonable asking for their ID, such as in this case, and you can read the opinion to understand why they came to that reasoning. And there can be unreasonable searches and seizures of your personal property and your identity. I don't quite know what those are. This case focused on the reasonable grounds for asking for someone's ID. So there's still going to be this line there between the reasonable and the unreasonable, but this makes it a lot more easier for cops to get people's ID, and it kind of takes away the favored strategy of the First Amendment auditing community, which is to deny a police officer's request for ID because they're not committing a crime, suspected of committing a crime, or just committed a crime. Now that defense doesn't really work for the frauditor. If the cop has a reasonable need to get the ID of this person, you can get arrested if you don't give the ID based on this opinion. It's going to be very interesting to hear everybody else's opinion on this ruling.